So welcome to the Campus Comics Cast, the official podcast for Muddy Monster Comics in Murfreesboro, Illinois. My name is Scott Reed, and I am joined on this episode by
Mike Atchison
and Chad Schubert.
All right, so this time we're going to continue. We're going to cover the Black Widow movie and give our opinions on that film. We're going to talk about Infinite Frontier, and then we're going to wrap up our discussion with Volume 5 of the Immortal Hulk. But before we get started on that, we obviously need to plug the Muddy Monster Minicon one more time. That's happening actually this coming Saturday as we record. So the Muddy Monster Minicon will be Saturday, July 24th in Murfreesboro, Illinois. It's just a couple of, storefronts down from the comic shop proper. But you can find all the event details on Facebook. Just search for Muddy Monster Minicon and you'll find it. We do have joining the con is Jason Font. Now, Jason is best known as the Red Power Ranger for Time Force. But I did learn this week that he is also the voice actor for Leon in the movie Resident Evil Vendetta, and that he was the motion capture actor for both Resident Evil Vendetta and for Resident Evil 6. So you got that now. So,
yeah.
In addition to his, work in Hallmark movies and, of course, as the Red Power Ranger. So if you are learning about this convention, though, after the date, just be sure to follow Muddy Monster Comics on Facebook for details about future events. So anything else to add about the Minicon before we start talking about Black Widow?
Just that my mom used to be she used to be a big fan of the Hallmark movies, but my wife is now too. And I've been meaning to show a photograph of this guy and see if she recognizes him. So
yeah, you'll have to put up the IMDb, list and list off the movies so that way, maybe that'll ring a bell. So
Absolutely. Yeah, it looks like a big load of guests and vendors and should be a good time. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing you play for the first time, Chad. So
absolutely.
Yeah, we got that as well.
You guys don't know this, but you're going to live stream me so I can watch. I want to hear Chad's music.
Oh, okay. All right. So
you don't know this yet.
All right, so I guess we'll jump into Black Widow. Of course, this is going to be spoiler filled. So if you have been avoiding spoilers for Black Widow, then you haven't seen it yet. Then you probably want to skip ahead, several minutes into the podcast before we start really talking about it. So I don't know. So Mike, what were your initial thoughts on the Black Widow movie?
Well, I mean, from a 30,000 foot level, it just to me was like one of the most action packed type movie, or it just was full of action, almost to the point that it was at times it was just you couldn't hardly catch your breath from the action. But I enjoyed it overall immensely. It's hard for me at this point to even rank these MCU releases anymore. I've enjoyed most of them quite a bit. So this one was a little bit different, and it wasn't without some fault, but overall I think it was a pretty darn good movie.
Shad, what about you?
It was, well, first off, who watched it in theaters? Who watched it on Disney Plus?
I watched it in the theater. So.
Okay.
Disney Plus for me.
Me too. I was Disney Pluser. I wanted to get to the theaters on it, but I was like, time got away from me. It's like, well, I know that I can just watch it here on my couch tonight.
There you go.
I'm with Mike though. It had overall it was a good feel. It kind of reminded me of comic book movies of a decade ago or longer ago when there wasn't a lot of over the top bright costumes and nothing was, not that this wasn't true to comic form, because it seemed like for Black Widow style it kind of was, but you're kind of now used to these characters that are bigger than life, and you didn't get that on this. It was like a little bit more grounded. Your villain was a little more grounded, which was an interesting kind of step back to go, oh, this is different in a way that was almost every comic book movie in the 90s and early 2000s. So that part I thought was kind of interesting on it. Definitely a lot of action, almost to a fault. I think on the back end, I got kind of lost in what was actually happening, because as soon as they got to the Red Room and that part of it was like, I'm not even sure what all is happening and why we're doing it, but we're just moving. We're moving for the sake of moving.
Hang on.
But I really liked Yelena's character. I liked that actress, that Florence Pugh. I'm excited to see kind of where she pushes forward into the DC, or the DCU, the MCU. Well, it'd be really interesting if she was in the DCU.
Yeah.
How does that happen? But yeah, it was really well paced at the beginning. I liked that a lot. I liked the family aspect, and how the family wasn't actually blood family, and they were all kind of placed into this mission because the way they sold it was family and everything, and then you find out that it's one of those same scenarios like we're used to with the Marvel movies, is that family doesn't necessarily mean blood. It's the people you're around and the people that support you, and so I thought that was a cool spin on that, to kind of sell it like it was a real mom, dad, two daughters kind of situation from the trailers, and then pretty quickly into the movie you find out that that's not the case. So I like that a lot. There were obviously questions, but overall, good action movie. Kind of not, like I said, not as much of a superhero movie as we're used to. So different take on Marvel's movies.
Well, I was kind of when I walked in, the girl behind the counter said, "Well, when you get out, tell me how it was." So I was like, "Okay." So as I'm walking out, I was like, "Well, it's no Winter Soldier or Black Panther, but it is better than Thor Ragnarok." So I kind of felt like it was kind of a middle of the road Marvel film.
Yeah.
I do think I want to watch it again. Just because it's one of those things where I'm concerned that some of my notions or thoughts that I had going into it, since they didn't play out like I was hoping or expecting, that might have caused me to be a little bit more disappointed in it.
I ran into that for sure. I had to kind of step back from that, because I felt like, well, I didn't like that it was placed in the middle of this timeline and not at the beginning, which is what I kind of hoped it was a
exactly
pre-Avengers kind of story.
Yeah, and that's what I was wanting. I wanted to know like this original story of the Red Room, not so much where it's at now, and it's instead of taking place, pre, what would have been, 2000. 2010, we get something there just right around the time of the blip, so that was just, again, not what I was expecting. And I really wanted a little bit, one of the things that was hinted at was we're going to, why, Black Widow's ledger was in the red because of, with Hawkeye. And I thought, instead I was just kind of mentioned in passing, in this, instead of us kind of getting that story, which is what I kind of thought that we were going to, but we kind of, we got hints at the story, but we didn't get the full story. It did kind of tie to what was going on in the movie, but it would have been nice to see it a little bit more concrete. And that been I wanted that to be the main focus of the story.
Yeah. I think we would have probably had more emotional ties to the villain at that point if we would have spent more time with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And just I wanted more flashbacky stuff with Hawkeye. I wanted a young Hawkeye in there a little bit, and all we got was a voice every once in a while, but not really. Yeah. No, visually, I thought the two of them together.
At the end. Yeah, a photograph at the end, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. So, now probably my biggest complaint with the movie is I just don't like David Harbour. He's one of these guys. He always plays, and it's like the Chris Pratt syndrome. He plays the exact same guy in every single movie. Chris Pratt is, Andy on Parks and Rec, and he's, Star-Lord. And I watched Tomorrow War. He's the exact same character in every single thing he does. That being said, I like that one character that Chris Pratt plays. I don't like the one character that David Harbour plays. He's always, the grumpy old guy, he's that way in Stranger Things, and he was that way in Hellboy, and he was that way in this. It's just like, I had a hard time, so I basically was pulled out of the movie every single time he's on the screen. So that was a big problem for me with the movie.
I could have predicted that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah,
You're not that you're one to hang on to things, but you hang on to things.
yeah.
And I
Oh
remember
yeah.
you saying that about Harbor before. I'm a little bit more generous with him. I know his range is much smaller than some actors, but I thought his role here was enough different than the Stranger Things sheriff, Eleven's dad type role. He wasn't that. That's definitely a grumpy, just tired of everything. I thought it was kind of humorous. I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was. I know sometimes we get tired of too much humor, but I thought it was fairly well played out in this movie. I like the idea of the pretend family turning out to be, well, what's, the question of what really is family. I I thought the chemistry between Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh was fantastic. I thought she played that character really well. Look, I'm not an expert on Russian accents, but man, I thought that was pretty good and
Yeah.
just pretty charming. I remember seeing her in a movie called Outlaw King opposite Chris Pine
Okay.
as Bruce, and I was like, where have I seen this person before? But that turned out to be where it was. But yeah, one thing I did think was interesting is that David Harbour didn't go to the Chris Evans school of get in shape for the superhero movie. Apparently, the super soldier serum that made Red Guardian strong didn't necessarily improve his physique.
Which I like because in Hellboy he was ripped. Like he really got fit for Hellboy. And then this couldn't have been timeline wise too long after for prepping.
I didn't know that.
So he had to have probably gained weight for this role, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I didn't know that. I hadn't seen Hellboy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's good shape for him versus good shape for other actors, but I guess if there's one positive about David Harbour in that is that he was the joke guy.
Yeah.
So instead of turning our main characters, Black Widow and the new Black Widow, and turning them into the focal points of jokes, and it was just all turned on him. So your moviegoer, I guess your non-dedicated Marvel Comics moviegoer, could have their laughs, and it didn't come at the cost of the main characters.
Yeah,
which
that's a good
so
point.
that's the only. I mean, that's the positive that I can take from him being in there. So he got to be the brunt of the jokes, and there was some humor, between the two Black Widows, like the joking about the poses, and every time, and that's to me, that's intelligent humor. It's not just fat jokes, and and what's bad is like
they made a joke about something we have all thought about, those ridiculous poses when you land. My God, they're going to do it again.
They're not ridiculous. They're cool. You expect it. That's something that you want from those. I mean, those are comic accurate poses, because we get those on comic covers all the time.
Okay.
we just expect those. Man. Talk about me being negative.
Well, I think there's a couple scenes where that's been done, and I had to roll my eyes, and I think you would have too.
I probably would have.
Yeah, especially when they do that pose and then they throw their Aquaman hair back.
Well, okay, yeah, but that's taking it too far. I mean, that scene is there just to give him an excuse to throw his hair back.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't even matter the pose down. It was the hair toss is what they wanted. So. But anyway, moving on. So yeah, I was expecting more history, about Black Widow. The whole thing about the family too. I felt that was a little forced. I mean, because these four people were together, maybe up to 3 years.
Yeah.
Now I can understand the youngest of them, the new Black Widow, that having a bigger impact on her. But for the two adults and then Natasha, I can see why. I just had a hard time accepting that very short period of time and everything that especially the two Black Widows went through after they went back that they would harbor any positive feelings at all towards those two as parents. So that was a big stretch for me.
Unless that was the only consistent thing that they had in their entire life were those 3 years, no matter what. Like for all four people, like everything else was this mission, this mission, this mission. They actually got to live a normal, quote unquote, normal life for 3 years. And that's the only kind of consistency they've ever had.
I guess when when everything's terrible, something that's just so-so,
okay, yeah,
way better than all the rest of the terrible stuff. Okay, I can accept that.
I think you've seen that more with Yelena.
Yeah,
you know, she was the younger of the two. That's all she remembered. That was in those memories that sometimes you have to hang on to the memories because they if you try to go back to it, it's not as good as what your memories are. So I think she was really hanging on to that, and it more so than than Natasha.
And then just knowing that was all a lie,
Sure.
that was tough for me to accept that. So
speaking of something that was tough for me, or tough for someone to accept, was, and I know every character, every hero especially, if they do something wrong, you want to give them a chance to redeem themselves. But when Natasha, Black Widow, in her attempt to destroy Dreykov,
mm-hmm.
and she blows up the building and knowingly blows up the daughter, I thought, man, I had a hard time with that. And I know she was sorry for it, but wow, there's people go to prison for a lot less than that. I'm not trying to put a damper on the character, on the show, or anything.
Yeah.
But it definitely shows that it's much more. There's more shades of gray than black and white when it comes to heroes and villains.
Mm-hmm.
It's more true life.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to remember, even in comics, that the Black Widow's origins are as a villain, not as a hero. So she started as an Iron Man villain.
Right.
So with the whole spy thing, with her having worked for the Soviet Union, and we'll talk about collateral damage later on when we talk about Immortal Hulk as well. But it's kind of one of those things of collateral damage, and it was the only way that she could be sure that he was there. That's what she told herself is the only way she could know for sure. So,
well, and speaking of like her history, one thing that I tripped over with this story, but maybe it's in the comics more, is which came first, the group of assassins, Russian spies, whatever, that are called widows, or her being the Black Widow?
In the movies or in the comics?
Either or, yes.
Okay, in the comics it's Black Widow first. Red Room is a much later. I think it's a much later creation.
Okay.
Black Widow's first. In the movie, Scarlett Johansson's, Natasha Romanoff's Black Widow is kind of a middle generation widow.
Okay.
Because her mother was a predecessor in that program.
Okay.
All
That's
right.
the way I thought.
And then they talked about the new techniques that they used that actually involved, the drugs and stuff, the mind control and such, as the subsequent generation. So you have at least 3 generations of that program in the cinematic. But I'm pretty sure comic wise that I can't swear that there's no mention of the Red Room in her first appearance. I do think that's a later creation.
It just doesn't make sense that you would want to name your hero character after this league of assassin spies. Like, ooh, that was a bad time in my life, but I'm gonna still go by that widow name and carry it on. It's just like, that doesn't make any sense. I would want to distance myself from that.
And just like that, thousands of fans across the country are rethinking the whole Black Widow name, Shad. You just turn everybody against it.
I would have wrote them to be called something different. I would have been like anything, just the spiders. Even doesn't even have to.
It's like that scene in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective When Nature Calls, where he's talking. He's got his translator with that tribe, and he keeps calling him White Devil. Well, that's how they know you. Okay, that's a stretch.
Well, one other, a couple of things other thoughts I had. So there was a post-credit scene, and this is a prequel, which is kind of interesting. I mean, but I guess it just shows how much it's jumping around in time. But
but the post-credit scene goes back to modern times.
Yeah. True. Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to comment on that, and it's, I know this is spoiler territory, but we get to see the Contessa again. And then the one other thing, which is a little bit more, I don't know. It's just, I thought, they touched on human trafficking in this movie, and they had an opportunity probably to talk about how much of a bad thing that is and how close to reality it is. But it was kind of drowned out in all of the action. I just think, this really, that's a dark aspect of the movie. Probably would have been too dark for people to enjoy it, but it's just a fact. But otherwise, this was, I thought, a really solid standalone adventure and good cast.
All right, so let's go back to the post-credit scene for just a minute. All right, so now, as far as I know of, this is the first time that we have a post-credit scene that, instead of pointing to a subsequent movie, is actually pointing to a Disney Plus series. So, because it's basically going to be pointing to the Hawkeye Disney Plus series, which I assume means we're going to get Yelena Belova. There's going to be that misunderstanding between Hawkeye and the new Black Widow, and they're going to have their fight. And is that going to be one episode? Is that going to be a large portion of the entire series? Is that going to be the whole story? Kind of is she the big bad, or the whole misunderstanding? So, and then of course that post-credit scene happens in the current Marvel Cinematic versus when the rest of the movie took place in 2016. That did say 2016 there at the very beginning, right? Did they have the year flash up?
Okay.
I 2016. I think so. I remember that anyway. I was expecting. So what the post-credit scene is that you have Yelena at Natasha's grave, and of course she does the whistle thing, and I was like, I really expected the return whistle to occur, but instead we get the Contessa showing up. All right, and played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and I am having a hard time with this character. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I guess maybe it's she's just coming across as wrong to me. It just doesn't feel right, and I don't know if that's how they want that character to be played. It's not how I would have interpreted the character from the comics into the into the films. So. She with the name Contessa, that kind of tells you everything you need to know. I would do her as a little bit more uppity, not kind of dismissive and even rude, as this character is in this handful of scenes. Well, I guess we got 2 scenes with her at this point. I don't know. So what are you guys thinking about the Contessa so far?
I'd agree with you that I don't know so much of it. I don't know the character in the comics at all. So, I just didn't feel like the actress was winning me over as much as I liked her and, whatever she's been in, everything from Seinfeld to,
Veep. The Veep.
Yeah, she's in Veep.
Yes. And I want to say West Wing, but it's the Veep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've liked her, but I just, she hasn't won me over charisma wise in this role.
Yeah, she's so casual in the way that she approaches it. And it's not even that it's like, well, that's Elaine, and she's in the Marvel universe, because it's not like we haven't had big names before that show up and do it. It's just that there's just a casualness to her that, and maybe once we see her in a full as a full character come out, maybe it'll be like, oh yeah, I like how she approaches things. Maybe maybe Samuel L. Jackson wasn't really like our cup of tea when he first showed up. Like when you first saw him at the end of Iron Man, and it was like him, and now it's like, oh well, that's all it can be. Like he is that character.
Well, I vaguely remember the feeling I got seeing Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, and I did not have that negativity that I feel right now about the Contessa. So that much I can say for certain.
Yeah.
Like the thing that bothered me in this one is you're at a grave and you decide that's the time to blow your nose and be all obnoxious. It just bugged me. It just bugged me. So I'm probably putting too much into that, but it's just like the the character is just kind of snooty and dismissive. So I don't know, just my pet peeve, I guess. I don't have those.
I'm curious. I'm curious if we'll see her a lot in Hawkeye, because it seems as though she's obviously building a team, right? She's got U.S. Agent, she's got whatever Yelena's code name is, and so if Yelena, if the misunderstanding is rectified in Hawkeye, what does that mean to you, to the team that the Contessa is building? If she immediately is losing a team member, it almost seems like Yelena has to remain bad in order to build up this team. We can't have a forgiveness, or maybe we can, but it just seems like it puts a big hole in our plan real quick.
Well, there are lots of characters out there that could be pulled in, because really what it kind of is to me is it's kind of building either the Thunderbolts or the Dark Avengers. You got a couple of different ways that can move forward. So, and if it's, they're either well, there don't have to be redeemable individuals. I mean, there are villains that were part of Thunderbolts, and the initial incarnation of the Thunderbolts was were all actually villains. Dark Avengers, it's other characters taking on the mantle of an existing hero. So we could see, like, okay, Don Cheadle coming back and either being War Machine or taking on the Iron Man armor. There's rumors flowing around that Bullseye from the Netflix series is going to, he could make an appearance either as a Thunderbolt or as a Dark Avenger. They haven't, in comic wise, he replaced Hawkeye. So I mean, there are some things that could be done. I just don't know where it's going at this point. That's all the speculation's for,
Yes, that's right.
But I don't know. Anything else we want to say about?
I think my only, and this, you get this with anything, is that, and I think Scott, you had said it when we were talking last week, or whenever that was, is that all the stakes kind of get taken out of a movie like this because that she survives. And so the big expensive action scenes at the end where she's running down the sides of blowing up buildings, and you're like, will she make it out alive or not? It's like, I mean, of course she will, because she's the titular character. But not only that, we know that she is alive because we
know when she dies.
Yeah, we know we've seen that. Been down that road. But yeah, that's the only other thing that kind of was a little shaky on this one for me. Was just like, I know the ending as far as that goes, and you kind of already knew that Yelena was going to move on, so there wasn't a lot of what's going to happen, I guess, towards the end of it.
And I think that's a testament really to how well the movie was, how well it was just put out there, how well the story was told, that despite all of those things that would cause us to not have any stake in it, or there not be any stakes in, her survival, we still enjoyed it. I think most of it. I mean, apparently a lot of people did, because it got 87% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. It's up there pretty high, higher than I expected even. So I think it's got that broader appeal to cause. And my wife watched it with me remotely, as we do sometimes, and she really liked it. So yeah.
I'm double checking your number here on Rotten Potatoes for Black Widow, because I'm surprised it's that high. Okay, it's now the thermometer is 81%. The audience score is 92%.
Wow.
So yeah. So you're okay. So you're in the ballpark.
The Rotten Potatoes.
Well, okay. Now we haven't talked to any about Taskmaster. So
there's a reason why.
Yeah, oh, okay. All right. Well, then okay. So you did not like Taskmaster, then, is what I'm.
It didn't really add much to the story. That story could have existed completely without Taskmaster. You could have taken that out of the movie, and it all would have happened the exact same way.
You couldn't have said it better there, Chad. I mean, it's, even though I didn't really think of that, it's almost like I forgot about that character.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually thought about his daughter more than what she turned into. You know?
But I guess that was the, supposed to be the big reveal. It's like, well, okay, so you didn't actually kill her, even though you thought you killed her.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and now she has undergone this whole program, and of course they don't explain how she got superpowers, but and for a lot of purists, they don't care for this change in the character, because the comic version, Tony, I can't remember his last name. And what's bad is I just read the Taskmaster series, but they did the gender swap, but his origin has nothing to do with the Red Room or Black Widow or anything along that lines. Now there was at one point, a female Taskmaster, is like in an issue of Deadpool of all things. So I thought the character was decent, and then you do have that somewhat have that character's redemption towards at the end of at the end, but that would be another character that they could use potentially in Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers, whichever route they decide to go. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we gonna rank it? Yes. No. Okay. Sure. All right. Well, who wants to go first?
Oh, I will.
Okay.
That way I can't be accused of copycatting. So I'm going to give it a very fine / near mint.
Wow. Okay.
That's
pretty high.
That's
high, Winter Soldier close range right there. So
yeah, it's
okay. All right.
I definitely liked it. Yeah.
All right. Chad, you want to go? You want me to go?
Go ahead and go. I'm still thinking about this one. I hadn't thought about it.
I am wavering on my rating a little bit, but I am going to, just because it's easier to say, I'm going to go fine plus, which is like 6.5.
Yeah.
I was going to do fine, very fine, which is 7, but I'm going fine plus 6.5. It's a good movie. I don't regret seeing it. I will probably watch it again. Of course, I watched Aquaman twice just to remind myself that it was actually as bad as I remembered. I still need to watch Suicide Squad again to remind myself it actually is as bad as I remember. But it's
we're declaring a moratorium on Aquaman bashing on our show. Get your limit, Mr. Reed.
Okay, all right. So I'm at a 6.5 because it's like I said, I liked it better than Thor Ragnarok. It didn't make a mockery of the main character like Thor Ragnarok did with both Thor and the Hulk. So I give it props for that. But it's not in the top 5 or 10 Marvel Cinematic movies.
I would say I'd go very fine plus and do an 8.5 on it. I liked where it was at. I am excited to do a rewatch on it. And see a little bit more of it, and thankfully with the Disney Plus purchase you can watch that all over again. So I'll check it out again and see, but I didn't run into a lot. It wasn't as superhero-y as I kind of wanted it to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't need to for it to be superhero-y, because really Winter Soldier was just a good film. I mean, you could have pulled they could have just been agents and had the same movie. It's still been a great movie. It just happened to be a spy movie with Steve Rogers, and that's hands down, not even close, is my favorite of all of the Marvel Cinematic. I mean, everything else is judged by Winter Soldier, and I guess that's maybe part of the problem.
Yeah.
It's like the Star Wars movies. All Star Wars movies now are judged by Rogue One.
Yeah.
And if you can't get close to Rogue One, then it's just not a very good movie, because Rogue One is just such an excellent film. And all the other stuff we get is just like so but Marvel has done a pretty good job of getting in the neighborhood of Winter Soldier, and I just think this one just falls just a little short. So
that director's not really done much, so that's another reason I'm just happy to. I think her name was Kate something. Anyway, I remember looking up yesterday what her previous
Kate
work.
Shortland. And
for not having a big repertoire of movies, I thought it was fairly well directed. So another mark in the plus column, I think, for this movie.
Yeah, I don't recognize any of her other movies. So
I didn't either. Yeah,
but they're, with the exception of one, they're all very highly reviewed. So
there you go.
Yeah. So anyway, all right, we done? We have with Black Widow. We want to move on.
So. Moving on.
All right. So last podcast with the previews, there were several mentions in the DC catalog about the importance of Infinite Frontier Zero. So Shad and I basically decided, you know what? If it's that important, then probably we should talk about it,
We should read it at least.
And at least read it. Okay, so yeah, that's really what it boils down to. Maybe we should actually read this book, to find out, what is the big deal and what is it that they're referring to,
Yeah.
Now, I'm just going to say just initially, well, we got burned again. We have the whole rebirth. It's another DC rebirth, and we've already been burned by this. But that being said, so what we start with in this is that we have Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman is basically being considered, I'm just going to say it, for godhood. Okay, so you have Diana Prince. She's basically being considered for godhood amongst this group called the Quintessence. Now, Mike, here's your chance to shine here. So I only recognize about 3 of these characters. So I recognize the Spectre, and I recognize Phantom Stranger, and then of course you have a Guardian. I don't know if this is Ganthet or somebody else, a different Guardian. Is okay. So now that leaves 3 that I am unsure of. One of them kind of reminds me of Highfather. I don't know if that's supposed to be Highfather.
That's right. Yeah, that's the one.
On the far right.
In that first big panel, it's Highfather on the right, and then going left, there you have Hera. And I wouldn't have picked out her if Wonder Woman hadn't called her out by name.
Okay. So I wondered about that, and the reason why I wondered about that is that you have these mythological characters who just say other gods' names as their exclamation. So whenever she said Goddess Hera, I wasn't sure if that was just one of her exclamations or if that was actually her.
So it's like he's like, is she saying merciful Minerva or great Hera or that's the actual Hera. That's Zeus's wife.
Okay.
Why she got top billing for Quintessence status and not Zeus? Probably because Zeus is a philandering fool.
Yeah. Okay, now is this the Wizard Shazam on the far left?
Yeah,
Okay.
Shazam.
Okay. All right. Hey, I've done better than I thought. So okay.
Yeah, that is Ganthet, I think. And
okay.
But it's what's funny is the Quintessence is literally a grouping of 5, and if they were gonna the Spectre is like he's like their Silver Surfer type.
Okay.
But when they invite Diana to join their ranks, I'm thinking, well, I guess they got to have a naming convention. Let's see, what are we going to call ourselves? What's the Sixtessence or whatever?
Yeah.
But, yeah. So
now the problem I have with this feels a lot like the Trinity of Sin from New 52 to me. Which there was just 3 of them. You had Pandora, Phantom Stranger, and Spectre. Question. Yeah. Not even Spectre. Question. And it feels a lot like that. So, and that ends up being absolutely nothing.
The Trinity of Sin was the one-off. They were the failure. This group has been around in the past, prior to New 52, I think even. So, still, they're not as they're not like Celestials, or it's just not as impactful, I think, as a group as what some of the Marvel cosmic groupings are.
All right, so Spectre is then going to Christmas Carol Diana Prince throughout the DC universe through a bunch of little shorts.
Took my words out of my mouth, man. My notes.
Well, I hacked your computer, so that's how I did that. I'm reading your notes, not my notes on this. So.
And I'm guessing, because I haven't finished it yet. It seems as though this is all predicated on events from the death metal is it death metal or dark metal? Death metal.
No,
it's
Dark Knight's metal. Dark Knight's metal is one.
Well, there's a second one that was death metal.
Right. Yeah. Okay,
so I think because it wasn't at the end of metal, so it had to have been at the end of death metal that there was something that led to Diana getting into this situation, it appears.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that death metal was the flashpoint of the Infinite Frontier.
It's very difficult to discern that in reading those books. It was one of the most convoluted. I went against my better judgment and read it anyway, and I just had the hardest time with it. The only good stories out of death metal were those spin-off books. There was a few pretty good, but the main story was that typical Scott Snyder over the topness. Like, how can I make things as big and as crazy and as it's just to the point of ridiculousness. But
of course
I gave up halfway through.
Yeah, of course they know they're apparently going to do a reboot anyway, so he can do whatever he wants.
Right.
you know. So
Yeah.
so anyway, Diana is taken to look in on Superman, and Superman arrives on a battle after the battle's over. So we are going to have this character Shazam, and that's basically all we know. So,
And that's my first indication of, okay, I can't even believe that they are trying to do this with a straight face. And maybe they aren't, but they don't really go into it any more than that.
No, that's all. It's all it is.
Are they being serious that they're going to let this guy Black Adam be referred to as Shazam? It was almost laughable. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's how I like the banner. You mean Shazam? No, Shazam.
Yeah.
You know, you mean Black Adam? No, Shazam. So I see, and it looks like Shazam, but it has the Black Adam. He has a Black Adam costume.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
And it's right, of course, as I'm guessing within the next 6 to 8 months, we will be talking about advertisement for the new Black Adam movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
and Black Adam's also being highlighted in the Justice League run right now, and it's not been nearly as bad. Well, it's been pretty good actually. So
So
way to confuse the general public with something like this as to go through.
Yeah. Oh, can I say that? But Scott, before you resume your read through of this, I just want to say that my overall thoughts of this book was that I remember in the 80s they had something called the DC Sampler for free. And this is what it's reminded me of. It was little 1, 2, 3 page long snippet stories to give you an idea of what's to come, except they charge us $7 for it. Yeah. So a little bit butthurt over that. But it's what it reminded me of. So
now in the DC Universe Rebirth title, there were only like 3 or 4 stories in that, weren't there?
Oh yeah, and they were much better.
I
mean, DC Rebirth itself was a great story. It's just they didn't do anything with it afterwards.
It meant nothing. Sound and fury signifying nothing. All right, so then we jump over to Gotham City. All right, so we're at Arkham Asylum. In some point, I assume in the near future, we are following this guard named Mahoney. Is he a character that we've known before? Do you know?
No, but when you talk about guards and things they do, I want to tell you, there's never, ever, even with a regular Piddly-O inmate, do you send one officer in to check on somebody who's unresponsive by themselves. Something like, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
so this isn't based in reality.
Yeah, good point.
All right, so he's walking through the halls. He discovers first a guard, and then he discovers Bane is dead and has been killed by Joker toxin. And then we get a little pan away where other guards are dead by the Joker toxin. So back in I can't remember what Barbara Gordon's area is, so I just refer to it as the loft.
It's the clock tower.
Clock tower, thank you. All right. I knew there was a name for it. I just didn't know what it was. So, and here she's kind of back being Oracle. She's not giving up on being Batgirl, but she also feels like she do as much or more good as Oracle. So they're in the clock tower. They get a code green. All right. Jump down. We go over to the Foxes playing chess. So you have Timothy, no Jace, and his father Lucius, and Grifter, of all people, jumps in because of what's going on at Arkham. But he's got to get him to safety. Then we jump to the mayor's office, and we have Renee Montoya basically briefing the mayor. Now, am I supposed to know who this mayor is?
If you read Batman Future State, you would.
Okay, I haven't read that yet.
Our Detective Future State, one of the Batman titles, Future State. It's the future setting is where this mayor and, well, you know what? I take that back. Maybe it's not the mayor as much as it is the magistrate, which is later on in this. So I do know that most of these stories are sort of leading into what we got a preview of in the Future State stories.
I see.
Okay. Then we jump back to Arkham, and Mahoney is basically, trying to get out of Arkham. But never fear, Batman, and I assume this is the Bruce Wayne Batman, is on the way. All right. So anything before I jump to the next little sub-story?
I feel like this kickstarts about 3 new Bat titles, right? I mean,
yeah.
at least the next Son or whatever, the one with Jace, that title. I'm sure that there was something that kicked off with uh, the Birds of Prey or whatever they're calling themselves these days. And then obviously a lot of this, which is why we started or wanted to read this, was what does this kind of tie into Fear State?
Fear State, yeah. So,
and that's the one thing I could care less about is the Fear State.
well, that's really that the Batman story is the bulk of this book because we would come back to Batman.
Yeah, I mean, there are some good. I really have enjoyed Second Son, and I think that there's good opportunities for some good Batman stories, but Fear State's not one of them. I just, one thing about the Barbara Gordon as Oracle, that she's calling her sort of her soldiers, which are Cassandra Cain and Spoiler, the Batgirls, which that's also been some some of the stories of the books now you get have like eight or so page long back stories. And those have been pretty good too.
Yeah, I like Spoiler and Cassandra Cain as characters. I enjoy those characters. So when I read them, I probably need to pay more attention to those books. All right, so Spectre and Diana next go back to Themyscira. Basically, we have, since Wonder Woman is not Wonder Woman at this point, we have the other Amazons that are vying for the title, and ultimately it is given to Nubia, who is a long-standing DC character. What, Wonder Woman 206 or something like that?
206. Yeah, early
200s. Yeah. Right. She is going to take on the mantle of Wonder Woman, but they got to keep their eye on this Brazilian girl and what's going on with Yara Flor.
Well, let me ask you guys this: would you, if you had the opportunity to have superpowers and all the notoriety?
The answer is yes.
You
if I had the opportunity to have superpowers, the answer is
no. Let me finish.
Okay.
But to do that, you had to look at Medusa's decapitated head and take a risk of being turned into stone, because if you didn't have a pure heart, that's what was going to happen. And I liked how the other ones were like, "Hey, go ahead, Nubia. We don't want."
Yeah. I'd do it.
I'd get a shot, you know.
You're a pure heart there, Shad.
Okay, now, but Yara Flor, we see, is being secretly watched. So I guess the question is do we know who this is that is watching Yara Flor? I don't feel like it's Amazonians, but I don't recognize this bird face looking logo that they have on their, the cape and on their shoulder, because it looks to me like a masked bird.
Yeah, like an eagle of some sort or a hawk.
Yeah.
Maybe there.
I mean, Atchison, you got an idea?
I didn't even notice that emblem, but until now. But surely it's not connected to the Hawks.
Okay.
But,
yeah, the Black Hawks is what. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that they're Brazilian also, based on the skin cone.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting that she's Brazilian descent, but she was raised in Boise, and now she's going back. Yeah. Just left her in Brazil all along.
And this kicks off the Wonder Girl title, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, it kicks off the Future State Wonder Woman, and then she gets demoted after Future State to Wonder Girl.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, because she is Future State Wonder Woman, because Diana Prince is Future State Immortal Wonder Woman. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I haven't read that one yet.
Neither have I. So I haven't really read anything on a Future State yet, because I just don't know what to think about it. So
yeah, don't know where to hop on, what to get, what's going to stick around.
To do it, you just would have to pour through it quickly and get it out of the way, so you kind of know what they're talking about. And
I have a box sitting here with all my Future State or my Future State books, and I haven't even touched it yet. I don't even have that box in my to read pile. It just my Future State books together.
At this point, just forget about it. Just ask me or Chad.
Yeah, there you go.
Are some of them ongoing? Like the Gotham title seems to be in like issue 3 or 4 at this point, isn't it? The Future State Gotham. Do you know for certain?
No, I didn't know that. They keep publishing these Future State titles that I thought that was over and done with. So I don't know what they're doing. No idea. I thought it was just a 2 or so month long
Right.
event. Yeah.
All right, so then we move on to Alan Scott, Green Lantern, who finally gathers the courage to tell his children, uh, that he birthed with his wife at the time, that he is actually a homosexual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, this has been known since New 52, but since
Yeah.
after they made that big deal out of it in New 52, they've done absolutely zero with this. They apparently felt the need to remind us. Plus, since Jade and Obsidian haven't been around, they weren't around in New 52, correct?
They kind of disappeared with New 52.
Yeah, so I guess they felt the need to have a story, reintroduce those characters back to the DC universe.
But keep in mind that the New 52 Earth 2 was a completely different set of characters. They were younger. It just wasn't the same. And
but the premise, it's basically it's a very similar story. I mean, the concept is the turning Alan Scott into a homosexual that was the big news that came out of the Earth 2 storyline.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that they picked up on that. But I think this was at least it was. I mean, that was it's like when they redid the history of reality. Mm-hmm. They kind of took that nugget of information from New 52 and said, let's incorporate that into the history of Alan Scott. Mm-hmm. So he, for 80 years or so, he's been in the closet and except for a few close friends, and then came out just now to his kids. I thought it was really a good series of panels, the way it was written, and I didn't really expect that to happen, but I guess I should have because of the New 52 Alan Scott. But anyway, it's my biggest thing about Jade and Obsidian, and this is another example of legacy in the DC universe, and these are his kids, and I can't remember was it Harlequin, I think, was the mother, but there's just a good family dynamic, and even though it's 60 or 80 years late, he's finally able to muster up the courage to tell his kids. So,
well, to me, this is one of those things where they arbitrarily, to get press back in New 52, they chose a character. What's the biggest character that we can choose to get the most press, but mean the least?
Without
this is the character. This is the character that chose because first they said, oh, we have a major. Because if you remember what else happened, we have this major character in the DC universe who is now gay. We have a Green Lantern.
Yeah.
The story progressed, and then it became Alan Scott.
It was the Green Lantern that everybody's like, I don't know that Green Lantern.
Yeah, he hasn't been around for
So they cheated on that a little bit. Yeah.
But so now they're saying, okay, well, we meant it, even though we haven't done anything story wise with that fact since New 52.
It's still there, yeah.
We meant it. So yeah, we're gonna now with this time we mean it though. So I'm sorry, I'm a little. This is just kind of a I didn't care.
I think it's important. It's important to represent. I'm just gonna say it's important to represent the LGBTQ plus community, but you don't want to come across as forcing it to the point of, well, we're doing it just for that.
Right.
And that's how it comes across to me.
And that's how I think it comes across, right?
Especially when you already have Obsidian there. Yeah.
These 4 pages is just, you kind of go, well, all of these other ones are like, here's these major events that are kind of happening in these corners of the world, and then in this corner it's little. It seems out of place. It's not inappropriate to these characters, but it's just out of place for the scale and scope of what they're trying to do in this book. It just kind of goes, hey, here's Alan Scott, remember him, and that's kind of all. It's
and I'm ready to. I mean, in the normal world, we would all go, if it was one of our friends that we've known for all these years, and you find this out, you'd be like, okay, great, you're still my friend, let's move on.
Yeah.
I just want to see DC dwell on this and highlight it every issue. Let's just incorporate it into regular life.
Absolutely.
All right, so moving on. Next, we get a boat moving into San Francisco, and we see the start of the Teen Titans Academy. And of course, one of the students off page is pulling the Red X mask out of their special Teen Titans Academy bag. All right. Now this, I think, in my opinion, is the most interesting story in this entire
Yes.
book. So we have Spectre and Diana looking in on Jonathan Kent, Superman. So, and he's battling some, obvious space creature, and the Spectre is basically saying that he is not Superman. He must never be Superman. He is a danger, basically, to the entire universe. And despite his, physical gifts, he will never ever be Superman. And this is a very bad thing. And then as they're watching these events unfurl, Superman basically, Jonathan Kent saves the day, not by his physical attributes, but by showing compassion and understanding what it is that this alien creature actually needs, and is able to diffuse the situation by, just basically returning this animal to, where it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
And despite all that, Diana obviously is very positive about Jonathan Kent, but the Spectre still is a little hesitant. But this story, again, is the best one, I think, in this book. And it has me wondering if I should be reading Jonathan Kent Superman, Future State and his regular title. I enjoyed him in the Legion book, but of course that predated this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that character is going to be the same, moving forward. So what are your thoughts on the Superman story here?
I like it when they introduce a question, like when you kind of start off with, he can't be. This is there's this giant negative impact if Jonathan Kent is Superman, and we see him in action and it going well, and you just go, well, why? And you're right. It's one of the only ones that kind of grabs you and goes, well, I want to find out why.
Yeah.
I want to see what's up with that next, and not necessarily knowing any history, but knowing that he's not had the mantle of Superman before. It's like, well, why? Why is that? And why can't he be that? And let's find out. Kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Atchison, I'm expecting you to chime in on this.
I started out reading this story thinking, okay, he's going to be the new Superboy Prime, the way the Spectre's talking here. But then I think they told the story in such a way that you're like, well, okay, take that, Spectre. Look what he just. And I thought it was really interesting that Spectre's like, well, okay, well, we're going to keep a watch on him anyway. So I did like it. I've read a couple of the Superman of Metropolis, that's the one that stars him. It hasn't had the same effect as this has on me, but we'll see. I think it's got promise.
And who knows? Maybe they resolve that whole issue in the Infinite Frontier. I can't even remember the name of the title.
We'll talk about it.
Maybe by the time issue 6 rolls around, that storyline's resolved, and we don't even know about it because we didn't read it. So
there was one other thing I want to mention about the Justice Society with Alan Scott. I'm stoked about these guys coming back, even though they've been talking about it for years that they're bringing them back. But I'm hoping by the end of this little 6-issue or whatever, 6-issue run, that we have a new JSA title. I really like the Justice Society.
Well, I feel like it's really more of a mark for Infinity Inc. than it is for Justice Society, with Obsidian and Jade. Weren't they both Infinity Inc.?
They were. I mean, but they could be part of the new Justice Society too. As a matter of fact, there's the Infinity Inc. was really an 80s title, and there's been the 90s and even the 2000s run of the Justice Society. So I think the legacy will catch up, and I would love to see it carry on. I'd be happy if they were even on a separate Earth than Earth 1, just like it was intended to be before Crisis.
So then we peek in on Green Arrow and Black Canary. They are back together, but Ollie receives a call. The caller hangs up before he's able to answer, and we see a now living Roy Harper, who is the one who made the phone call. So Roy Harper is now back in the Infinite Frontier. Then here's Stargirl. I don't know a whole lot about Stargirl.
I'm
sorry.
To say, man.
Oh, okay.
Roy Harper should never have. This shouldn't have ever. I mean, maybe that's what they needed was some the facade of change
Clean the slate.
make
This
things
character,
exciting.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a Stan Lee thing. He said, you got to put to make things interesting. And Heroes in Crisis, they definitely changed some things, including killing Roy Harper by his best friend Wally West. And I was excited to see this for just the fact that he's back, and they'll find a way, hopefully, to work him into the DC universe. So just the dreadful results of that Heroes in Crisis, I just want to see it go away. And I know it's not Tom King. I think he's a great writer. I think that was an editorial thing where they picked out some of those characters to die.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to move ahead that quickly.
You know me.
Now, the Stargirl story I thought was pretty cool because we have the Stargirl who's taken on the mantle of Starman. And, we kind of talked about the importance of family in in Black Widow. But now you have the sidekick. Was it Stars and Stripes? Is that what it is?
Stripesy.
Stripesy, right. Who was the sidekick to
Star Spangled Kid.
Yeah, before. So now he becomes the sidekick here for Stargirl, and of course you have the references to the Seven Soldiers of Victory, and there's that one shot that's either out already or is out soon. I can't remember.
So Seven Soldiers of Victory. Why are there 8 people in that panel?
Oh my goodness, Shad, we should talk sometime about that. We'll do a read-through of Justice League of America number 100 through 102.
Okay,
and that'll tell that story, why there's the 8th Soldier of Victory.
Okay.
But in this case, isn't it just one of the sidekicks of the Sevens?
That's what it ended up being, is Wing. Is Crimson Avenger's Ward. Wing was the missing 7th soldier in that story. And he was, I can't remember the outcome of that story, but he was recovered somehow. But that was the 8th story. No, he didn't. He died at the end of that. So, yep.
Gotcha.
But is Starman supposed to be one of the 7 soldiers?
No.
Okay. All right.
Star Spangled Kid is Sylvester Pemberton, and his ward or chauffeur is Pat Dugan, Stripesy. And yeah, so these guys, this group was never really a team as much as they were all starred in a comic book called Leading Comics in the 40s. They all had their individual stories. You had Star Spangled Kid and Stripesy. You had Vigilante, the Great Circus version. You had the Green Arrow and Speedy of the Golden Age. And then you had Crimson Avenger and Wing. And you had
Shining Knight.
Justin, the Shining Knight, yes. So but it wasn't until the 70s when they were resurrected by Len Wein and Justice League to be an actual group.
Gotcha.
Oh, it's great stuff.
All right, so now we're back to Batman. All right, so Mahoney, and he's the guard that's been going through, is able to actually rescue a couple of nurses from an explosion, but he does so at quite great cost to himself. Now, I don't know that he dies. They don't say that he dies, from his wounds. You'd almost have to assume in the amount of blood that he dies, but they don't actually say that he died. So I don't know if this is going to be a character that's going to pop up again at some point or whatever the case is. But Batman then goes back into Arkham to save some other survivors after basically ignoring an arrest attempt by several other police officers. And then the Batman portion here kind of wraps up with them going, and we see Simon Saint and the Scarecrow are kind of the masterminds behind this. Now, I am familiar with the Scarecrow, but I am not familiar with Simon Saint. So can you elaborate on that character? Or is this a new character?
I think he's new. I don't remember him from anything before DC Future State or whatever I've seen him in this past year. What's weird is, to me, he looks like Jonathan Crane.
Yeah, that's who I thought it was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's a different person, unless he's...
Is he a split personality then? Maybe that's a split personality?
I don't know.
They aren't in the same panel.
Yeah, that is true. You don't see them actually together.
Yeah.
So
that looks like Jonathan Crane.
But there's even like on the page before where you have like that Saint, what is it called? Saint Industries.
Industries, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Jonathan
true.
Crane wouldn't have named it
Yeah,
Saint
that's true.
Industries. He would have been
Yeah.
Crane Industries or whatever. So
Coincidence,
okay,
maybe.
all right. So
Yeah.
okay, so I'm not as out of it as I thought that I was. I just thought this is something I was supposed to know. So okay. So next we check in with some other additional Green Lanterns, and basically we have John Stewart and is it Simon Baz? Is that
Simon
the
Baz, yeah.
Baz? Okay, is the are taking Teen Lantern to Oa, and so she is having her first experience seeing Oa.
Hmm.
All right, anything you want to say about that one?
No, I mean it's a good
Okay.
little. It's good to. I like Teen Lantern probably better
Well,
than.
I just giving you a chance because I jumped ahead on the. I'm just
Sorry.
making sure. I'm not.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So then we're getting close to the end here. So now we get a little Flash excerpt, and we have Flash working with Calvin Ellis. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so Calvin Ellis, who is I don't remember what Earth, he is the
23.
Superman. And he is also president. If I at least at one point he was president.
Right.
Um, so Flash is using his abilities to work with other others in the multiverse, and guess who shows up? Wally West. All right. So, and basically, Barry tells Wally that, hey, I'm going to do this other stuff, so you're going to be the Flash. So, and all I could think of after reading this was DC, make up your mind about what you want to do with Wally West.
Yeah. I'm happy about it. I, I think this is probably, in my opinion, the best sequence in the book. You got the Flash showing up in this House of Heroes, which first came about in Multiversity by Grant Morrison, and that's where this whole Justice Incarnate. They're basically representatives of all the different Earths across the multiverse, and they get together to stop multiversal threats. And Wally shows up because he's been invited by them to. He explains that to. I'm sorry, Barry explains to Wally that Barry's been invited to join this group and also to explore the multiverse. It's all been readjusted and stuff. But to be honest, I always was a Barry Allen guy growing up, but when Wally took the mantle in the 90s and it was done so well for, we're talking 15, 20 years, I didn't really want to see Barry come back.
Yeah.
I was okay with Barry not coming back. And then when he did, they tried to make Barry have a Wally personality. And I go, that's not, that doesn't match.
Yeah.
And
If you want a Wally personality, keep Wally.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just did nothing meshed. And maybe that's just me being the grumpy old man. But
Get off my lawn.
yeah, but I'm happy to see Wally back as the main Earthbound or the main Flash. And I've been hearing that Jeremy Adams, I think, is the writer. In fact, I heard so much about it, I went ahead and bought the 4 or 5 issues that have been put out so far. It's the first time I've bought a Flash book in, my goodness, I bet 15 years.
Oh wow! So you didn't like the Rebirth Williamson stuff?
I just never would. I just had a bad taste in my mouth about Barry being the Flash again with that personality. It's like, but I heard a lot of good stuff about Williamson. So I
enjoyed it. So
yeah, I'm glad to see Barry in this sort of a role that's outside of the normal, stuff, and he can explore the multiverse and be his no nonsense personality that he had, over the early years. And and Wally can be the Earthbound Flash. So I'm excited for this part.
So we get this page after the Flash story where we see some of the things that are apparently going to be happening in DC. So we have Deathstroke. We have like these panels basically inside of with Spectre and Diana walking across it. We do see Aquaman and Mira and Aquababy and I don't know who that's supposed to be back there. Yeah. Oh,
that's Jackson Hyde, Aqualad.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I got a pet peeve about that. I don't mind having that character, but I don't know what happened to Garth. I mean, I like
Right.
dark, you know.
Then you have your Green Lanterns, and that's basically for the most part the same crew, though John Stewart is not in that image, but we had, and I guess is that Kyle Rayner in there too?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
Kyle
so.
Rayner in there. So I guess since Simon and John were in the book, they just put these other lanterns here just to let you know they're still around.
And maybe
And
they've got
then,
a separate book or something that maybe there's
well, there
two
were
different
like
lanterns.
Rebirth. There was like 3 Green Lantern books.
Yeah, that's right.
It was crazy. Now that first row on the next line, it kind of reminds me of Wildcat, but now I'm thinking that's maybe Midnighter.
That's who I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
and
a
then,
cool character too.
Okay. Then you've got Shazam, not Shazadam. You got Shazam here, which I still prefer to say Captain Marvel, but they can't. Then we got Peacemaker,
Mm-hmm.
with Amanda Waller, and then we got Blue and Gold. So that was a good little thing. You got Crush and Lobo.
Yeah.
Justice League Dark. You got your Teen Titans, and you have Cyborg on the Titans there. Okay, that's probably more pointed to the Academy though than it is to the actual Teen Titans. Then you have your Legion of Supervillains, but that sure looks like Martian Manhunter and Hawkwoman to me. And
Mr. Terrific.
And Mr. Terrific, yeah. Vandal Savage.
If you read Infinite Frontier #1, you'll see what this is.
Okay. So go ahead and tell us. Let's spoil it. What is it?
It's a Justice League incarnation, and to be honest, I forgot exactly what it's part of this. It's not the main Justice League, obviously, but it's more that the villains are part of the Justice League and not the other way around. You have Lex Luthor, Vandal Savage, Mr. Terrific, Martian Manhunter. I don't know who that is in the white. That's Talia. And
okay.
Hawk Girl. So
how do you know that's Talia?
Because I read the book. And it's
okay. All right. Okay.
So it's we can talk about that at some other time, but I will say that Infinite Frontier #1 is eons better than 0.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, the little snippets like this one it's hard to take this one like as quality literature, know. And then we have Supergirl, and she's holding the sword for some reason, which is actually from the
World of Tomorrow.
The Tom King book, and then Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we kind of got a little prequel of some things that are going to be happening. We then have Wonder Woman is basically so excited about the things that the Spectre has shown her that instead of joining the Quintessence, she decides, nope, I'm going to keep being Wonder Woman. So you can find somebody else to take that spot, for the Infinite Frontier. And then we get the epilogue. So we have the Quintessence that are basically on Earth Omega. And I skipped over the references to Earth Omega back in the Flash story. Do you think we need to back up and talk about that for just a second?
Just that in their description of the multiverse, Earth Omega is the one Earth that is the farthest away from everything else.
Okay.
And I think there was some mention of it being containing some great evil or something like that.
They talk about that here in the epilogue, and it's like Earth Omega, as the Flash called it, will be a prison, a place of endings, a place where even gods die, but it's not the Quintessence saying die. It is in fact Darkseid saying die. So can't have a good changeover anymore in DC without including Darkseid. So,
and that's my beef really, is that, come on, there's got to be some more, material we can use without going back to Darkseid, or it just feels like we just got over one Darkseid event or another, and we're already going back as this being the big bad. And man, they built this guy up like they built up this like it's the next big event, and I'm not buying it.
I think DC with Darkseid has Thanos envy. They think that Darkseid can be their Thanos, and they just haven't been able to hit it right. They're wanting Darkseid to have his Infinity Gauntlet moment, and he just hasn't had it yet.
Right.
So they're going to try it again. So,
which ironically, Thanos was he was imagined after Darkseid.
Oh yeah.
That was, And that DC on the movie front was just always a day late and a dollar sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, I think I basically said, everything I had to say about this particular book. I mean, again, we wrote it because they kept referring to this in the DC previews as the events that started in Infinite Frontier Zero, and basically it's Simon Saint and Shadow Scarecrow are going to do something.
Yeah,
it's
with filler.
Arkham. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's traditional issue 0 stuff. It's and things that don't actually matter or aren't necessary unless you're diehard about it, I guess.
So
you just have to be able to pick out what you think you're going to like and not buy into all of it, but just know what you love.
Yeah.
It has piqued my interest about Jonathan Kent though. So I guess I'm going to have to. So, but it's like I really am not super stoked. It didn't stoke me about any other of the characters. Maybe Yara Flor just a little bit.
I picked up Wonder Girl 1, and I'm gonna see what's up with that. And then I did get the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow book. So those two definitely more for the artwork than anything. I thought both of their artwork styles are really cool. So
yeah, I had a few copies of the Future State Wonder Woman like graded, and man, those things sold so fast.
Yeah.
Because of the covers.
Yeah.
I think you would enjoy if you try out #1, Infinite Frontier #1. I think you'll enjoy it. It's written by Joshua Williamson. So I think and Zermanico doing the art. Wow, that guy's good. Or that gal, I'm not sure. But really good stuff.
They are good.
Yes. And I also got the Infinite Frontier Secret Files, which I'm only a few pages into that. But yeah. I'm just a sucker. I really am. That makes some people happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have my peeves, obviously. We all have our things that we really, really like. Captain America is my favorite character. And, it's just like I'm gonna, I'll read a crappy Captain America story but I'll really get excited about a really good Captain America story.
Sure.
Yeah. So we all just have things that we kind of, our comfort zone, I guess. So, do we want to grade this?
No, because I don't think
it's going to be super high.
No, yeah, it's not meant to be one cohesive story. It's just it's a sampler. Yeah. So it's the jury's out, I think.
Okay. Well, so actually, you said your favorite was the the Stargirl story, right?
Me, I think that's one of my favorites. I'm looking forward to the Seven Soldiers of Victory. I'm interested in the multiverse stuff with the House of Heroes and Flash and the Justice Society. If they come back in some form or another, I will be there for it. Absolutely.
Shad, what was your favorite?
I think the Wonder Girl thing does seem interesting, which is why I picked it up, and just something completely out of my normal reading pile. I don't know anything about Wonder Girl, and I was like, well, I feel adventurous during this relaunch, and that's a good time to feel adventurous, right?
Well, it's a brand new character. I mean, there's no back history to this character.
Okay.
So that's a brand new. Death Metal 7 was her first cameo appearance, and then her next appearance is in Future State Wonder Woman, and then Wonder Girl. I mean, you'd have to pick up 3 issues to see everything before Wonder Girl 1 to see all of her other appearances, So, it would not be hard to do. So, and I like I said, the Jonathan Kent Superman story. People want to call him Superboy. I know that's not, and that to me is the big issue. One of the big issues is like, you have how many Batmans now? You have how many Supermans now?
Yeah.
You have how many Wonder Woman? It's tough. That causes confusion.
Right.
So, and I guess, and people are so touchy on Superboy versus Superman and Wonder Woman versus Wonder Girl, and like, Hawk Woman started as Hawk Woman and became Hawk Girl and finally said, no, I'm not Hawk Girl anymore. I'm Hawk. It's just people get touchy about that now. And but you gotta be able to differentiate these characters easily.
Yeah.
That's such a simple way
yeah.
to differentiate them.
We're just only going to call them by their actual names. No code names anymore. It's just all Bruce Waynes and Jace Foxes and
I'm telling you, they took away the best solution was in 1956 when they figured out, okay, we need to reintroduce these characters as something different. How are we going to do it? And we're going to put them on a new Earth. Now, granted, the Earth 1, Earth 2, to be honest, in 1956, when the Barry Allen Flash came about, there was no multiverse concept yet. It wasn't until, Flash 123 where they introduced that. So whatever year that was, 160 or 1961 or something. But so they were trying to keep the name and then just reinvent the characters. But and then they created the multiverse to account for both the old and the new to keep both audiences happy. But we're talking 60 years since then now, and it's been hard to replicate that in a consistent way.
And the advantage they had then was there had been a several-year period where people just didn't care about superheroes.
True. Yeah, that's
true. And now they're trying to do these reboots when people are actively buying those books, and now we got another reboot.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, Scott. I hadn't thought of that because in the 50s, it was like, it was after the Wortham Senate hearings and, seduction of the innocent and, they went to Westerns and sci-fi and all that stuff. And it really wasn't that long. And when you think about it now, it was only like maybe 6-7 years.
Yeah, not very long at all, but long enough for, cultural memory to, be able to make a change. And obviously several of those characters were continuously published. There was like 5 of them that were continuously published during that time, but it was down enough where you could kind of start fresh. So, all right, Immortal Hulk.
Sounds good.
So we're up to volume 5. So we're at the end of this. We'll be halfway through Immortal Hulk. It's going much faster than Vigilante did.
Wow. Yeah.
It feels like it anyway. So.
Yeah.
All right. So issue 21. I'm gonna go ahead and read the blurber. As the smoke from last issue clears, General Fordian makes a fateful decision. There can be no more half measures. No weapon is off the table. Force must be met with equal force. This is a war without rules, and Shadow Base is going to win. So what we have, the issue starts with Fordian, is they're preparing to transport Fordian someplace. We don't get a whole lot of details, but Gowan is kind of saying we need to test it more, but he's like, no, let's go. And he's actually transported. Actually, I'm jumping ahead. So before that, we get a flashback to Fordian's father, who is apparently a minister. He's in Sunday school, and this is apparently where Fordian gets his need for structure, because his father talks about structure. So next, we're back on the Alpha Flight Station, where Fordian makes quick work of Titania and Absorbing Man. All right. Another flashback. Fordian is 20 years old now, and he's actually seen for the first time the devastation that is caused by the Hulk. And now Thunderbolt Ross is encouraging, basically talks him into how he can focus and how he can deal with it. Back to the present, Fordian's still on the Alpha Flight Station. He takes out Doc Samson and Puck. And then we get another flashback. This is back to the death of Thunderbolt Ross, and by finger quotes death for Thunderbolt Ross, because we know he's back around, right? And because of the Hulk killing Ross, this is where he begins to conspire with other military brass for the creation of Shadow Base. Back on the station, Fordian kills Langowski. All right. And then steals the Abomination entity suit, whatever we want to call it.
Shell.
Yeah, there you go. That's probably a better way to describe that. Another flashback now to Thunderbolt Ross, basically in prison. Fordian meeting with him, and basically he says, I had to become the Red Hulk to be able to fight the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, this is the flashback where Fordian merges himself with the Abomination. So anything you guys want to comment on for issue 21.
Just it was good. I like the backstory on Fortean, what drives him, and I really like the dynamics of Gamma Flight members. And no matter how many times I think I'm used to, okay, the characters are going to come back from death, the brutality of their deaths, it's just crazy. It's just so, and maybe I'm even thinking about the wrong issue here because I don't know if we got to that yet, but. Oh yeah, no, it's this one. Yeah, when Doc Samson dies yet again.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And
well,
then I'm
it
like,
kind
oh,
of it kind of frees up the writer. It's like, I got an easy way to bring this guy back. We can do whatever we want. I mean, it's a little freeing for the writer. So.
Yeah. I mean, Walter Legowski, you don't know if he's coming back, but he probably will. So
we assume at some point he will, but who knows? So
I liked the bookend of him sitting on the throne at the beginning of this issue and at the end of it, and I hadn't realized until I went back to beginning to look at this again is that we end this entire volume with Hulk sitting on a throne,
right?
And before the PS scene, I guess, but. I really enjoyed the guest artist on this issue, that Ryan Bodenheim, who I just know from doing some of the kind of image work with Jonathan Hickman, and I really liked his style was just a little Kirby-esque, and I dug it.
Yeah, I liked his art too. It wasn't too far of a stretch from what we were used to. So
yeah.
Oops, I jumped up. So issue 22. All right, Shadowbase's one goal: to stop the monsters, the forces of chaos, and give the power to men of order. But the monsters have goals of their own, and now they're working together. Rick Jones remembers everything, and you wouldn't like him when he's angry. So I don't know where they've heard that before. But anyway, issue 22, we start off back on Alpha Flight Station. Langowski is still dead at this point, though Doc Samson has been revived, and they kind of talk about, hey, he doesn't have any gamma anymore, so he may actually be gone this time. But Puck's not taking any chances, with his friend, but he's also not mourning his friend either. So we'll see where that eventually leads. Back at Shadowbase, McGowan is confronted Fortean about his choice to merge with the Abomination. Fortean seems confident, but it is pretty clear that things are not going perfectly as we get the little green ooze leaking out of his nostril. Back to California, where we have a very emaciated Rick Jones. It's kind of just curled up in the fetal position in a bathtub, and he, basically he's not even really conscious at this point. Betty Ross is watching over him.
I thought she was using the bathroom in this at first, and I was like, well, that's a weird choice, but then obviously she's not.
Because they got like that shadow across her legs, and it's like her, her pants are pulled down. But yeah, no, she's just sitting there. Yeah. Joe Fixit is the current Banner personality. So when she opens the door, but she's back to being Red Harpy. So, and
that was I love those panels there. I mean, she's so intimidating in a very weird way. I mean, he's just like Joe Fixit's just like, or no, it started out with Bruce Banner. Or was it Joe? Yeah, it was Bruce Banner at first. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like
he switches.
Yeah, the dialogue back and forth was fantastic.
Yeah. But it's like, are you going to stop? No, this is me. So
and I like that she's pretending like she's not changing back, but as soon as she leaves his side, she's back to her human form, sitting there, but she's putting on a show to be like, no, this is what I look like now. You can't.
Well, but she says she can change back. Because she says, it's like, are you able to change back? Oh, yes. Are you going to? No. And I had missed that there was the change in personality from Banner to Fixit.
Yeah, where he puts his hands in his face.
And yeah, I hadn't caught that. So, okay.
And Bennett does a good job with that portrayal, those faces.
Mm-hmm.
But during so Joe Fixit then leaves, goes out to talk to Jackie McGee, and during the course of this conversation, Rick Jones awakens and basically says, I remember everything. So he basically remembers everything that's done to him, but he also knows where they are, which is under Groom Lake. Then we have Alpha Flight, actually directly transports, because they've now learned where things are, directly transports into Shadow Base, but they are immediately captured because of Fordian's psychic surveillance that he has, so he kind of knows what they're thinking and what's going to happen. But before things can get too out of hand, this party gets crashed by Hulk and Betty and Rick and Jackie McGee. So, what else do we want to talk about here in issue 22?
I just love that this series of issues, and especially this one, is just like we're kind of taking care of business. Like we're headed off kind of a big climax of the last volume, and it's really just stacking up a really good plot. And especially as we get into this issue of we didn't waste any time getting into story, it doesn't feel like. And this was a pretty linear issue of just, hey, we're heading right into this action of the next climax, the next battle with Fordian, and which, you know, this kind of seems like maybe at the end of this volume we end up with the end of our fight with Fordian, or at least for now. Yeah. And this is kind of leading up to those big battles. I like that.
Yeah, 21 was kind of like the respite issue where we didn't have there was combat, but it was kind of a little one-sided, you know. So
that's true, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else to add?
No.
All right, so issue 23, the war has come home, and Shadow Base is the battleground. The stage is set for the final confrontation between the new Abomination and the Immortal Hulk. So we start with a flashback scene where basically Jackie McGee is kind of remembering that first time where she encountered the Hulk. You know, you got the whole Hulk warning, and now she is seeing it again, you know, firsthand here with this fight that's getting ready to occur between the Hulk and Fordian. So the Hulk and his team do combine forces with Alpha Flight. Now Jones has a separate plan, and basically we learned that Hulk is just the diversion. So Jones is basically able to find the HQ and McGowan, and whenever he goes into the headquarters, we have McGowan, who's basically begging for the life of her fellow scientists, saying, "This is my fault. Let them go. I'll stay." You get back to the fight, and here is where Fordian unleashes his acid bath on the Hulk. But it appears that instead of having the complete destructive effect that it had previously, what it does here is just kind of unleash the big guy, and we get a very mutilated Hulk smash as coming out of his mouth here for the final panel of this issue. So some very gruesome scenes in this one, like when Puck rips the spine out of the suit of armor. So, just some, lots of gruesomeness that we've come to expect.
A lot of one-upping each other. I'm gonna shoot you with these darts, but then I'm gonna block it with my titanium, and it's a lot of back and forth. Oh, you're gonna melt my face. Well, I'm gonna turn into this other personality that can handle it, and it's just the ante is just constantly being upped. It reminds me of like when you're a kid and you're like, well, I'm invincible, and it's like, well, I'm gonna chop off your head and you can't grow back, and like it's just this kind of constant build in this fight. But I really like the additional story piece to Jackie in that just those first couple of pages. Kind of adds to her character even more, that backstory as far as character building in this. Otherwise, it just seems like it's an all-out brawl of action.
It's hard to understate Joe Bennett's ability to, put out the feeling of what's going on. Whenever you see the fear in Fordian's eyes when Hulk shows up, you're like, yes, and then seeing Dr. McGowan, when she's seeing all this going on from her monitor room, she's, literally slouching in her chair with her forlorn face, she's so sad, and she's like, they're like, Dr. McGowan, are we safe in here? And she's it's just so well done.
Yeah.
Great storytelling.
So moving on to issue 24. 4 as the war with Shadow Base comes to a brutal, bloody end because the parts up until that weren't as brutal and bloody. uh, Bruce Banner has a choice to make, and the repercussions of that choice will have an effect on every single life on this planet, including the Immortal Hulk. So we basically start with what is the creation of the Marvel Universe, where Galen of Ta is Galactus in the current Marvel Universe. And he is the final living thing from the universe that came before the Marvel Universe. So they give us these scenes to basically tie Gamma into part of the creation of the current universe. So it's a little bit of retcon going here. So, and then we get another flashback here where we have the creation of the Incredible Hulk along with the creation of the Fantastic Four. So that's kind of going on, and again, Gamma is part of that process as well. So now we go back to the present, back to the current battle. There you have that fear on Fordian's face, and now how I interpret this is based on what is said, because Fordian's basically saying we can outthink this guy because he's just a brute. So it appears that the Devil Hulk was just faking out the big guy personality just to kind of throw Fordian for a little bit of a loop, because the Hulk then shows some intelligence in taking off a piece of his own flesh with the acid bath and throwing it on some of the human people's there, and taking them out of the fight. So it's not necessarily the big guy here, but I don't know. That's how I interpreted this. But anyway, back in the HQ, McGowan now sees what is going on with the fight, and that includes this scene where the acid bath comes out again, and when he sprays it on, tries to spray the Hulk, he misses and kills some of his own, men, and this is where we talk about the collateral damage. So McGowan at this point relieves Fordian of command, and then Hulk finally does kill Fordian, which then takes us to below, right? So now, and here we have below, we have what appears to be Banner, we have Brian Banner, we have Doc Samson. So I guess that means Doc Samson died during, this fighting that occurred here in Shadow Base. But we find, of course, Fordian's kind of shocked to be here. But since he's Gamma now, that's where he ends up. But here we get a little play. It's not actually Bruce, it's Joe Fixit. And Joe Fixit snaps Fordian's neck while they are here inside of the green door.
So that was my question. Does that make him permanently dead? Or, because I thought they were souls when they're down in the land below or whatever.
I am assuming that is going to make him dead. So I guess they have this way that they can kill off certain characters, but they have to do that while they are below. But I don't
double kill them.
Yeah, that's the double tap.
Okay.
But that's how I am taking that. So
yeah.
Now with Fordian gone, Devil Hulk takes over Shadow Base. All right. And then we have this little epilogue, and we've seen a couple of these scenes like this before, where we are moving way into the future, and we have Bruce Banner meets up with another being. They don't go into a whole lot of detail about who this other being is, but basically the two are supposed to combine to form the next universe. So just as it was Galactus, Galen that formed the 8th, this individual and Hulk, or Bruce Banner, will form the 9th, but Bruce decides, you know what? That's not the plan that I'm going to go with. I killed Franklin Richards to keep him from doing this. I killed Mr. Immortal, who was the backup plan to keep him from doing this. So he just kills this other creature, and this other creature is like, this is not how this is supposed to happen. But that's what we get.
You explained that so much better than the 3-4 pages that were on here, because I was like, I'm kind of following along. I get it. And then I was like, I'm a little lost, and then every
Well, I
panel I'd
hope
get a
I'm
little
right.
further away.
I hope I'm right. That's how I am taking
Well,
this.
wait till the next issue, because the next
Oh,
issue
I know.
has 5 read-throughs.
Okay, well, and here's the thing. All right, so I guess since we're talking about it already, let's just go into the fifth issue here. So issue 25, we've got their groundbreaking double-sized issue. You've never read a Hulk comic like this before. I agree with that statement. You've never read a Marvel comic like this before. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. The heat death of our universe has come and gone. The Hulk is finally dead. Is he really? Now, billions of years later, the ninth cosmos cowers before the breaker of worlds. Okay. This is my shortest synopsis of all of these. I literally have 2 sentences on this story. All right. The final 2 living creatures in the ninth cosmos create another life form, which they send back in time. Once they're there, they get that sent back. The Breaker of Worlds arrives, which is this ginormous version of the Hulk. He kind of even has these pants that kind of have a little bit of a Galactus look to him. When you look at that picture, he destroys basically the last world, and he does this just because the Hulk just wants to be left alone. So to me, that is the synopsis of this issue. However, I guess we got one more. We do have one more thing here at the end, where we have this cryptic backwards message that we don't really get any details. So this is going to be setting up, we assume, the next story arc, right?
Yeah.
Where you have, and this is, to me, it's a mirror image, because there's this whole thing about the monster and the man in the mirror.
There's 2 people in the mirror, yeah.
Yeah, and I apparently am on the wrong issue here. Hold on just a second. Sorry. Let me get to the last couple of panels here. There we go. So it's like, and this is backwards on the page. Joe, is that you? Are you there? I need help, Joe. Can't see. Something's eating me. I think it killed the Hulk. And this is Bruce Banner trying to get hold of Joe. Yeah. So now we go back to present time, and we see this thing that was sent back by yeah, and it is this weird fly, and they had a name for it. I've already forgotten what the name
Tiny
was.
fly. That's how they communicate across time and space.
Mm-hmm. And it is the leader, who is a classic Hulk villain. We've not even had the leader mentioned any, who has received the message from the future. And I'm sure longtime Hulk fans have been like, we're 25 issues into a Hulk run, and we not a single time have we talked about the leader. Well, now we're getting the leader. So
yeah.
All right. So there was a whole lot of, this whole interchange between these 2 last creatures. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it's unnecessary. I mean, it's a lot of setup for nothing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it gave it some sort of context that it was tough to read. I mean, it just took me a minute to really. It was very obtuse, and but it helped me probably understand overall how this was. I mean, I understand there's the multiverse in the Marvel universe is more of these 8th cosmos, 9th cosmos type. It's almost like a repetition of Big Bang.
Right.
Right. Yeah, but this is, I mean, you have alternate realities in the current Marvel universe, but this is going to past the end of the current universe,
the next
to the start of the next universe.
It's deep. It's deep. And it just seems so different than the previous 4 issues.
Yeah, I mean, it so really sticks out like us. This was a long issue to slog through.
It feels like Al Ewing had a story he wanted to tell that he had in his back pocket that had nothing to do with Hulk, and then like found a way to shoehorn it into the story, instead of like doing a one-shot indie book almost.
But to me, it's more like we had those little pieces where Banner kills this last creature.
Yeah.
Well, the universe still ends, so here's what the end of the next universe looks like.
Right.
Because instead of having Galactus, we got Breaker of Worlds.
Yeah, he's Hulk, Galactus Hulk.
Yes. So, but we, it's also like we have multiple stories about the end of everything. I guess the difference with this one is that it's the next universe, not the current universe,
Right.
because like there's one version where it's Thor and a Wolverine Phoenix are the last things that are alive, and there's other stories where it's I can't even remember some of the other ones now. There's been several, like all your writers have this is the end of the universe. This is that billions of years in the future where the universe ends. Now we got yet another one of those stories. But I guess he's able to differentiate it by it being the ninth instead of the eighth cosmos. So, but yeah, it does just feel so out of place with, what we've had the previous 24 issues of those little excerpts. So it was kind of weird, but yeah.
Especially since we're kind of used to in this story like a 2 to 3 page flashback here and there of something. So we're used to short kind of pickups throughout that kind of tell a story. Did we need 20 pages to tell this story, or could we have done it as a 3 to 5 pages establishing this little new planet that Hulk is going to end up smashing at the end anyways?
And I guess he felt like he needed the time to say, hey, this is. You felt like it was like when you read The Old Man and the Sea. You literally are like, bored from reading about this guy sitting in this boat, and it's like, did Hemingway actually intend for me to just be bored to show me the boredom that the old man has actually experienced? Is that the point? So but anyway, I digress again. So.
I like that.
So what else do you guys want to say about issue 25?
Or for volume 5 or issue 25? No, okay, so it definitely took a turn, and it's once in a while I do like reading something or having something that I have to read more than once to understand. And as good as the quality has been on this series, I didn't mind it as much as some Grant Morrison written books where I'm like, oh my gosh, Final Crisis again. Figure out what's going on. I mean, is it meant to make me feel stupid? But this didn't make me feel stupid. It made me feel okay. Just pay attention to the writing, and Al Ewing's proven he's got some chops, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
I'm one of those people, like whenever I read Lord of the Rings, when it gets to the songs, I just skip them.
Oh,
right, yeah.
You can't do that.
And this is almost like it was a song that maybe I could have skipped, but
I could see that.
But no, the first time or two I read it, I skipped the songs, but I've read the songs. So. All right, what else do you want to say about Immortal Hulk?
And it's just as good as ever. It seems like it's outside of the kind of weird road bump in it, obviously, but it sets it up for whatever is going to get weird next, and it seems it's nothing is strayed, as you said earlier, Mike, that Al Ewing is really got a story to tell, and he's really consistent with it, and it makes me go, okay, what's next? Let's head into it. It's definitely a page turner.
Yeah, to me, Al Ewing has earned my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to read this no matter what, through and through. And I may reread the whole thing again. And it'd be the first time in decades that I would read this many issues. I mean, going back to Starman by James Robinson. That's how long it's been since I've been this impressed with an entire run.
And we're just halfway through. So do we want to grade this one?
Yeah.
All right. I guess, should we preface our grades by saying they don't include issue 25?
Okay. That does change things. It raises the curve a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, we understand that for Al Ewing, felt that 25 was a necessary story. But I think we all kind of agree it's kind of maybe in the long term, we'll see how it fits in. But, I mean, if you want to give your grade with 25, I guess that's your choice. But
well, for me, it's still a near mint or near mint minus. I mean, I can't force myself to go lower than that. I mean, I'm glad we're reading this. I mean, it's not like some of the other stuff that you feel like it's homework. This is not homework.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like Vigilante.
Yeah.
I tried to read that along with you guys when you were doing it, and I bowed out like one issue in. I was like, this is rough.
Yeah.
We tried to make it interesting in our reviews, but yeah, But no, I'd say near mint or near mint. We'll go with near mint. Yeah.
I go a 9.0, a very fine near mint. On that, near mint, very fine near mint plus. On that, I like it. It's not my favorite volume, but overall, I like the pace of it. It went really quick. It had a really just solid, especially the first 4 issues of it.
Yeah.
It was just really like, oh, I'm already done with it. That's cool. But yeah, it wasn't my favorite, but it really had some good parts to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go very fine plus, just because it's while I enjoyed the fight scenes, I mean I really feel like when you look at the 4 issues, it's primarily like a giant fight scene,
Mhm.
and that's great, but there's not a whole lot of depth to a big giant fight scene.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that it was bad. And this is now I guess the 3rd time that I've read these issues. So I'm still enjoying it a 3rd time through quite a bit. So I'm pretty good feel pretty good about the very fine plus on this particular volume. So
I like that when they do something like that where it's really a very big fight scene, they take the time to pick up little backstories about like General Fordian and how he got to where he's at, or Jackie and or what have you. They just take a couple of pages here and there to just also throw you a little bit of character building, and I think that's a cool way to handle that.
yeah, you don't want 22 straight pages of guys punching other guys.
Yes.
I mean that's what a lot of people, that's all they want from their comics, is the big guys punching the big guys. But it's like you said, it's nice to have those. It's like when on Claremont on his X-Men run, they would have these major stories like Days of Future Past, and then you would come in where there would be comics of them, playing baseball, on the mansion grounds, and it's just like, it gave you a break,
Mhm.
So here we just had the breaks in the issue as opposed to an entire issue that's a break. So.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else you guys want to add before we wrapped up this episode?
I think that wraps it up.
All right.
It does.
All right. So Mike, it's your favorite time of the podcast.
Oh, so embarrassing. Okay, so if you want to reach out to me on Twitter, a Twitter account that I really don't ever check, I'm at Mike Atchison 5. But I do have my notifications on, so if you were to send me a tweet, I probably would be notified. So one of these days, I think I'm just going to go ahead and put out my Facebook information and go with a public account.
Shad, what about you?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Shad Schubert. That's ShaadSchubert. And Can't Get Rights have a couple of shows coming up, so look us up on Facebook. That's Facebook.com/Can't Get Rights. The one with the was already taken, so that's why we're just Can't Get Rights on there.
And I'm Scott Reed with Berg Comics. You can find me at bergcomics.com, BURG comics.com. I have a list of all my upcoming conventions, including Muddy Monster Minicon, Saturday, July 24th, and then Superman Celebration, the 30th and the 31st, and then RaptorCon in Evansville, the 21st and 22nd of August, and then my convention in Harrisburg, Illinois on September 4th, and Cape Comic Con October 1st through the 3rd, I think, in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and then Carbondale Slooky Con sometime in January of 2022. Yep. So yeah, it's gone from nothing to like
everything.
non-stop. And I actually had to, because of some family things, actually not go to at least one convention I normally would have gone to in that time frame. So all right, we're done for now, and we will talk to you soon.
That's always the fear. Well, it's one of the fears. Even when you do push record, sometimes one time. Yeah, man, that was Oh, you know what? The second time was even better.
That's right. And it was just me and you, so nobody important had lost any time. So
Nobody knew any better.
that's right. So did we tell him? Did we say anything about it? I don't know if we say anything about it.
Maybe at the end, or it seemed like kind of we tell on ourselves quite often, or I tell on ourselves. I'm like diarrhea of the mouth kind of guy. You know? We'll have to talk about a new indie book sometime. Something that's, you know, anymore. I'm almost going to force my way away from the big two on new buying just because well, you'll hear about it on my Infinite Frontier review.
Yeah. Well, I think crossover wraps up in it's 10 issues, so that's one that we could even. And I think 8 comes out maybe next month or something. So it's not too far from wrapping up. We can. And speaking of series, it's wrapping up because you weren't on the previews podcast last time.
Oh, yes, I know.
They solicited issue 20 of Die, and it is the final issue.
Even though I wasn't one, I seen that and I wanted to message you, and I thought, no, we already talked about it, but it's going to seem pretty, mundane for me to say now. But I definitely thought of you when I seen that. I'm like, Scott was right.
I need to go back and figure out whenever I called that because and I'd called it. I knew it in my mind even before I even said it on the podcast.
It was probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
that's a good note, guys.
Yeah.